3, 2, 1.
Peanut Gallery Gaming.
Welcome to another episode of Peanut Gallery Gaming, where our opinions don't matter. In today's episode, we'll be talking about game sound design, what makes it immerse you into the game, along with game sounds that stick with you since you played games many years ago. The next topic will be about RPG games, what makes us love them and what makes us hate them. And of course, our favorite RPG games that we love. We'll go over those as well. But as always, I'm Hotted, joined with Stinky Bandit.
G'day.
Doggy Dog.
Howdy.
Bartol Il Perso. Wait.
I don't think Barto's here.
Oh, he ain't here today. And last but not least, Uncle Blobby.
Uncle Blobby, happy Saturday, everybody. Thanks for having me along.
Absolutely. We wouldn't do this without you. We'll do it without Barto, though. Let's get into sound design. One of the most important aspects of a game to immerse you into the world of the video game that you're playing.
Really important, I think, but also often easy to overlook.
Absolutely. A lot of games go overlooked for sound quality and in general.
Especially when you see a trailer for a new game. I don't have an example off the top of my head, but often people are really drawn in by the visuals because good graphics are a really big deal in games these days. And I don't think we tend to realize how much that the sound actually matters. Like when you see these graphics of these guys swinging swords at dragons and whatever, you tend to get lost in that. But at the same time, there's there's a sound for that sword cutting through the dragon. There's a sound for the dragon breathing fire at you, and there's like music in the background or whatever, and there's the sound of footsteps running across the rocks, and it really helps to build an immersive experience without being obvious and in your face.
Oh, it definitely does. Like, just think of a shooter game. If the guns sound like crap and they don't sound meaty, like, say, a shotgun. If you have the greatest shotgun in the game, but it doesn't sound meaty, so it can just take you out of it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be satisfying to shoot or to be killed by. Yeah, for sure.
It's never satisfying to be killed by it, but...
Yeah, you're right.
Definitely, because like sounds can make or break the game. I know in a lot of games that we play, especially now, still playing Tarkov, Escape from Tarkov, the adrenaline of just the sounds alone of you sitting in a room all alone, you hear the creaking of footsteps coming towards you, or gunfire, it gets your blood going. Even, let's say not even Tarkov, let's say just RPG game that we're going to bring up later, but when you're in a boss battle and the music's just blaring in your headphones or on your TV, it gets your blood going. It gets you ready to fight. Gets your adrenaline going. It makes or breaks a game for me, because if you're fighting a boss and it sounds like you're skipping through a meadow,
not quite the same experience. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's what I kind of think. Game sound should be there to really punch home. Immersiveness of the game, including graphics. Like, graphics are one thing, sound complement the graphics, I think. Then again, you could have all the graphics in the world, but if you have no sound, you don't have a game.
I agree. And then you got take Call of Duty, for example.
there's been a couple of them that really struggled with the sound audio on the multiplayer side, to where like they've tried to balance it out with dead silence and everything else. But a really, really, really good player that sound whores is what it's called, that knows how to sound whore, can dominate in a multiplayer lobby just off of sound alone. So sound is super important in certain games.
Especially the first-person shooter games or third-person shooter games.
Wasn't just recently we were playing Apex? It wasn't too long ago, and they had put in these rings of fire, kind of like rings of fire, but like internal out of bound rings.
Random areas where out of bounds area would pop up randomly on the map in little circles.
It would emanate, even if it's not there. It would be in your head.
And if you were moving and you'd hear that sound of you like running in and out of the zone over and over, even though you're nowhere near it, and it was super annoying to the point where you just didn't want to play because it was just in your ears and it was loud.
It is a garbage sound.
But
so yeah, do you have anything to say about sounds? Any games that you were playing that you really liked?
Me? I don't know. Well, I don't really have any favorite sound. Well, I can't think of any favorite sounds off the top of my head that you guys probably aren't going to mention anyway. But I do know sound is very important. Like, I've done over 1,000 Destiny raids, and sound cues in those are on point. Like, a certain sound cue will happen, which will then, mean you've got to do certain mechanics, all that type of thing. Or for a different example, like I think I mentioned there last week where I used to play sort of competitive fighting games, and I can remember when I was like doing a whole lot of like training, I guess if you'd say that, in like inverted commas for Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and one of the guys from work that I was working with at the time said, you can't be that good. Anyway, I challenged him to a match, and I actually beat him blindfolded, playing purely on sound effects. So that was pretty interesting, and that sort of demoralised him. But,
way to flex,
so I can't think of a favourite sound effect, but definitely my least favourite sound effect is it's mainly in old school games, and it's when you're on low life, the game goes it's telling you constantly that you are on low life. I think everybody hates that. Like Zelda does it, Metroid does it. There's quite a few games that do it, but that is the most annoying thing to me, is that.
Uncle Blobby and I were talking before we started here, and he brought up the fact where he used to play Pokemon Red, and I'm sure there's in a bunch of different other ones, Red and was it Blue? When your Pokemon were at low life, it would be consistently going off in your speaker there. Yeah, that's beep 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 beep.
It's just quit it. Like that's definitely my most hated thing I can think of when it comes to sound. But it does remind you that you're at low health constantly.
Yeah, so and I probably hate it too, but I think it maybe helps create like a sense of urgency, especially the way they design those sounds. Usually it's some kind of obnoxious beep thing, and it reminds me of like seeing a movie or some kind of TV show where a guy's like on life support and that EKG heart monitor thing is like beep 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 beep.
Look how much time left.
Yeah, so it helps to create the ambiance, I guess, because in real life, if you're almost dying on a bed hooked up to one of those monitors, that beeping sound probably ain't gonna quit either until you're healed up. Yeah, turn it down. So Stinky, if I may ask, you had mentioned, I think you just talked about this, but so you used to play a lot of Street Fighter. And you played it competitively, and I think you talked about playing it blindfolded, and then so using the sound was like must have been your cues, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah. The hardest thing, the only thing that I struggle with is judging if my character's facing left or right. Marvel vs. Capcom is a game that's very, very combo based. So once I hit you, I just, it's just like just tapping at the string of buttons.
You know
But
you're
like,
facing the right way at that point. Yeah.
yeah. So it's and that was because I challenged this lad here in the first of 10, and I beat him 8-0, and I said, I bet you I can beat you blindfolded. And he didn't believe me, and I said, okay, let's go. And yeah, it did.
So the other thing, I guess, is like, how do you know that you don't know if you're even close to the guy unless you can hear yourself hitting him? Is that how that works, or?
Yeah, like Marvel vs. Capcom is a very different game. It's different to Street Fighter. It's same basic premise, but it's very fast paced and sort of combo orientated. So, and like you can almost like fill the whole screen with fireballs at a certain point if you know what you're doing. So kind of you can sort of just cheese people out with that sort of thing and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it is pretty cool. But that was also about 9 years ago as well. So
yeah, okay, fair enough. It's still kind of impressive to me. Like, I don't know of many video games that I could play that I could even play blindfolded against nobody.
You should try Escape from Tarkov.
Yeah. My skill level is pretty much as if I was blindfolded. So
okay, so that's Huggy. What is one of your favorite memorable sounds from a previous game you played that kind of just stick through with you all these years?
Let's see. That's a
if
good
you had
question.
to choose one, it is a
if
great
I had to
question.
Choose one. Being an old Xbox fan, it was probably the Halo theme song. That one just always stuck with you. Or the song they would play when you're like about to go into the heat of it, and it's that dun 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 dun. That just always just puts you in the mode to just fuck some shit up.
You got the hair sticking up on the back of your neck as you got you really pumped and or juiced to start shooting off your needler into a crowd of suspected aliens. Yeah.
Yep. That one would be mine.
That would be yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Uncle Blobby, do you have one that sticks with you from
the ones that are like most obvious at the top of my mind when the question comes up is like the classic Mario sound effects, whether it be jumping or gathering a coin or going down a pipe. Those are just burned into my brain. I think that for most people who grew up playing Mario, that's probably the case. And maybe that's a boring answer, but it's at the top of my head. And another one that came up today on the list of my searching through this subject is the Pac-Man sound effects. Like when Pac-Man is eating the dots, it's just that constant like waka 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 waka.
yeah.
That's I didn't know at the time like what that was, but as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh yeah. And then when Pac-Man dies, he's got a signature sound as well. It's kind of classic ones like that are probably ingrained in most people's memory.
Because you could hear it and okay, that's Pac-Man. Okay,
jumping over the barrels in Donkey Kong. It makes that
sure, yeah.
Those simple, but they're still memorable to this day for
they are
a lot of people, right?
Yeah, and this is like 30 years later, and like these sounds aren't something that's super complex that like radically changed the world or anything like that, but they're just little salt and pepper condiments on top of what was already a great game, I guess. But everybody knows, like when Mario grabs a coin, it makes that ding sound, and
you don't even have to be looking at the game and know what game they're playing. Right?
You could have that sound for your text message notification or whatever, and
you're like, oh, that person's a Mario.
Yeah,
Mario
you got no visual, but that sound clicks in your head, and it's like, oh shit.
Dark memories.
Yeah, I think the Mega Man sound effects are up there on that list too, because a lot of people grew up playing Mega Man, and his little blaster has a certain sound. He dies, he's got a certain sound effect.
If I had to choose my most memorable sound, I would probably say the opening of a chest in Zelda Ocarina of Time. That there to me was the fulfillment of completing a quest or some kind of tiny achievement. I beat the puzzle prior to getting the chest.
Yeah,
and still to that day, just that sound, you're like, oh, right on, like I accomplished something. Or it'd spark a memory of me running through and finally getting the hook shot, or fire arrows, ice arrows, iron boots, all those things that you'd pick up in chests in Zelda.
That shitty water dungeon that everybody hated.
Oh yeah.
It's like the one where you're inside the whale or whatever that was.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first 3 that you had to beat.
Yeah, in Ocarina of Time. Yeah, I remember that distinctly. Also,
game.
like in that same game, there were other sound effects when Link would like roll or whatever, and he'd do like the
or the fairy would be, hey, listen.
Yeah. Little Navi.
Navi would always have something to say, and it was, listen. They were married or something.
Yeah.
Thinking about sounds too, like I guess sort of another couple, like the achievement sound on Xbox. That's pretty iconic. Or then what about this is more of an old school thing of like maybe Quake or Unreal Tournament or even Halo, where they actually have like an announcer, like double kill.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
triple kill.
Unstoppable.
Unstoppable. Things like that.
Yeah,
I think that was pretty cool. It made like that sort of arena battle seem like it was actually in an arena with a guy watching you.
Yeah.
Noticing how awesome you are, or how
there's only
awesome
really Unreal Tournament, Quake, and Halo are the only games, like there's Call of Duty and all that sort of stuff. Like they don't have anything like that. But it's
Finish him.
Finish him.
Yeah.
Combat.
Finish him.
Yeah. Fatality. All of those were good too. Oh, let's move along here. Let's talk about RPG games. So I looked up here what makes a game an RPG game. In general terms, a game is an RPG if your team and or character follows an outreaching quest. And this quest typically involves leveling up, fighting enemies, and navigating important menu systems. RPG games are a wide genre covering huge range of themes, which can make them hard to define. Big part of this comes from the fact that many type of games are now incorporating RPG elements. So I got a list here of a few that I can kind of give a few examples. Assassin's Creed. A lot of them would be role playing or have role playing aspects. I should say.
Boo.
World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy franchise, Diablo 1, 2, and 3. Elder Scrolls games like Skyrim, Winds of Mordor. Is there any more that you guys can bring up that I kind of missed in this list here that you guys can think of off the top of your head?
For RPG games?
Yeah. Just as examples, or
I think there's a lot of games with RPG elements. To me, an RPG game is like or like a game that I would consider a really good RPG is one where you can actually define the story, to your own extent. Okay. So I think Dragon Age, where you can choose to be good or bad or make certain decisions that actually outcome the story, where like so Diablo is technically an RPG, but it's always the same, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's more of like an action RPG.
Yeah.
Whereas Dragon Age might be like a pure
or Mass Effect,
RPG.
where you can actually like sort of determine the story but what you do. Like to me, that's sort of more impactful for an RPG.
And wasn't Fable too? Fable was
Fable's
Fable 1
great,
and 2. Yeah, that'd be an RPG
Monty
where you could
Python meets
choose.
RPG. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that Stinky made a good point about games having RPG elements. Like that's kind of how it is nowadays, and maybe the definition, if you will, of RPG games is more of a spectrum than it is like either you're in or you're not. Like, okay, it's like maybe you got a couple RPG elements, or you're like a full blown, you have every RPG element game. Because even stuff like, well, like Escape from Tarkov, you level up your character.
You do.
I mean, and some of the choices you make impact how the rest of the game plays out. There's no overarching storyline yet, so obviously we fail that category.
Oh, it would be RPG elements incorporated into it, right?
Yeah. So all I'm trying to say is like maybe they're not just distinct categories of this game's an RPG, this game's not. A lot of games are going to be like sort of walking that line one way or the other.
Okay, so let's say if you had to choose if a game was considered an RPG, how much of that game would have to be comprised of the elements of the RPG? Would it have to be like 70%, 60%, 80% RPG elements for it to be considered full-on RPG?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question.
A game I'd consider to be an RPG more boils, just in my own opinion, more boils down to the storyline. So Grand Theft Auto, you can level up, but I wouldn't call that game an RPG, where say Dragon Age or Mass Effect or, something along those lines where it's a huge branching storyline that you can chop and change and, or Fallout, where you can do certain things differently. So you can play the game 10 times and do different things each time. To me, that would more personally be an RPG for myself.
I think that's agreeable.
Think of RPG game. I think about you start the game. First menu is make your character.
Yeah.
You want to have a lizard face, or do you want to have like a big unibrow?
Yeah, sure. And a lot of times, one of those options in the character creation is like, what sort of stereotype does your character fit into? Like, I'm thinking of maybe, your background and like your lineage or whatever, but like also your class. Like, are you like a barbarian or a paladin or a sorceress or a rogue or whatever? Like the traditional Dungeons and Dragons fantasy role-playing setup is for me a big tell, I guess. Like if a game wants me to be a sorceress or a warrior or whatever, then I know I'm kind of getting into an RPG game, right?
That would be a good definition.
Mind you, they're not all like that. Like it shouldn't be a requirement because Final Fantasy games, you get a party full of those characters. You don't get to choose which one you are at the start. You start as one of them, and then other, like a healer and a mage or whatever, will join you along the way. But that's part of it. You have these characters with their specializations or their jobs.
It's part of the story, right?
Yeah. And they each develop in their own kind of way. And you get a lot of choices on how they develop too, I think.
Oh. That would be a good aspect of an RPG. More on the RPG side than element side, right? We are following a linear story, that be or RPG element, or an RPG is where you can choose your own adventure per se?
Depends on the game. Because Final Fantasy games are always pretty much there's side missions, but the story is always going to be the same. But I would class those games as RPGs because you got a party, you got different, change their gear up and all that sort of stuff, different abilities, and
Yeah, and throughout the game, you play the role of that character, I guess. And Final Fantasy is kind of linear. Like, you always get to the same boss fight in the end, no matter how you develop your character. Whereas some other games, I haven't played Dragon Age ever through to the end, but I've played Divinity Original Sin through to the end. And, like, depending on how you play through the game with your party of characters, you encounter a very different game ending. And so that's another interesting aspect of the genre, I suppose. Whereas, a game like, Fortnite, you play Battle Royale again and again and again and again. Each match has the same kind of outcome. There's always one winner. It's not, there's no story development per se. Except how
the battle pass.
Yeah, they introduce new lore every season that kind of has some kind of story arc to it, but I'm just ranting at this point. I hope somebody else can jump in and cut me off.
Yeah.
I think the largest, most prominent RPG I ever played was World of Warcraft, and I've played it since the beginning. This is the only expansion I haven't played, because that brings up the subject of RPGs is, when is it enough? Like, at what point do you say, okay, I'm tired of this game? Because that game has had how many expansions?
Yeah.
12 years in, isn't it?
At least.
The game started in 2006, I think. But
yeah. It's like, that's kind of why I quit playing, because it's a rinse and repeat of the same thing. Yeah, you level up, you get new abilities and stuff, and there's new bosses to fight, but it's still the same thing deep down.
Or are they just grinding for money?
Not even. Like, at what point, what are you grinding for? Or you,
yeah,
pretty much.
Your character is grinding for 20 pieces of the new kind of rune cloth or whatever for the latest quest.
Yeah, you got to get that new armor set from the raid. Oh, I need to get the head of the curve achievement or something like that to get a mount. I mean,
yeah, latest mount. Yeah, all those different cosmetics. But at the same time, I think Hotted was just sort of saying that, like, the company, Blizzard or Activision or whatever, they're just grinding for more money.
Oh, yeah, no, they're making more money.
They're playing an RPG where the quest is to get 2 million more subscribers, and they get a reward and they level up at the end of it.
Right. I don't know. It's just weird. It'd be nice to see a new, fresh RPG that's a little different.
Okay, so that being said, let's take a minute to hear a word from our sponsor. Let's bring up our favorite RPG that we've played then. Do you want to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, sure. Favorite RPG? I guess just throughout the time, I can remember playing a lot of Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Jade Empire. Well, I'm just more thinking about games, and then at the end, I'm going to say one that I want to get a sequel to. But yeah, there was Jade Empire on the original Xbox. I used to play a lot of Dragon Age 1 and 3. Number 2 doesn't count because that was garbage. Just like Hoagie was saying then about World of Warcraft. I played a little bit of World of Warcraft, but I couldn't really get into it. But I did play a lot of the Star Wars version of that. What was that called? Anyway, it was like a lot more like acted and voice acting and stuff. Dark Souls. Played a lot of Dark Souls games, if you can class those as RPGs. But one that I actually really do enjoy, and I don't know if it's my favorite, it's too hard to say a favorite one, but that I would love to see remade is Dragon's Dogma. I don't know if anyone's ever played Dragon's Dogma.
I heard of it.
That's actually a game I played through twice on the original Xbox, and then also bought when they remastered it on the Xbox One, and I played through it again. That's an excellent game.
Oh, this Star Wars one that you were playing, was it Knights of the Old Republic?
I believe that's what it was called. Yeah, that was many, many years ago.
It
was basically World of Warcraft in Star Wars universe, but like all the cutscenes were all live, like all acted and voiced, and could choose different dialogue paths and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But Dragon's Dogma, that's probably one that I would say is probably one of my favorites, and I'd love to see that game remade. That's actually a game that's you actually see like 3 different endings. Like you beat the game, and then you can still run around and do stuff, and then there's another ending that'll happen, and then another ending after that, and it's kind of got that sort of complete different tones, but like sort of like Fight Club. Where if you watch Fight Club once and you see the twist at the end, and then if you go back and watch it a second time, you pick up on all the little things that sort of go, oh, that's right, you were hinting to that the whole time, Yeah, Dragon's Dogma is an excellent, excellent game.
That came out in 2012 there.
Yeah,
so that's a 9-year-old game now, so it's about time they get on a sequel.
Yeah, but it's been that long. I can't see them. I know that they did remaster it for the Xbox One because I played through it again, but I'd love to see that game get a sequel, but I don't think it will.
According to the Wikipedia, they just released a Nintendo Switch version in 2019. So they're still, somebody's still working on it or something to that effect.
Someone's keeping the lights on, yeah.
What was so interesting about that game as well, it's just like you'd play as a party of 4, yourself and then 3 followers. 1 follower you would make, and he was your permanent follower. And then the other 2 followers, you would go into like a summon stone in town, and you would be able to summon up other people's followers. So say if Hod had played, he could play with his follower, and he could also borrow a copy of my follower that would go into his game and play around with him and stuff. And yeah, so it was kind of it was very cool.
Yeah,
you'd almost
really cool.
make like NPCs that would join other people's games and help them out, and it's just and the combat was very Dark Souls kind of like, I guess.
Okay.
But, yeah. So dear Capcom, please remake that game.
Hey, Dog, what is one of your favorite RPGs?
Even though I kind of talk shit about it, it's probably World of Warcraft, because that was the main game I played growing up. I mean, I've played since the beginning. Not when it came out, but I kind of late into the beginning of the first installment of World of Warcraft, but I've played every expansion.
You put many hours into it, is what you're
level
saying.
on characters in every expansion except for the new one. Just because I just can't. I don't know. Not in my...
Lots of stuff to keep your interest in that game.
Yeah.
Not so much now, but it did.
It did. It had a different feel back then, and then you always try to go back to that game trying to get that same feeling. And
yeah, and it's not quite the same feeling anymore, right?
It's like different.
Burned out.
And
I played a lot of World of Warcraft as well. And like when the Burning Crusade came out, which was the first expansion pack,
I loved it.
I went to fucking EB Games at midnight on the release day, and I was standing in line, and I got the game, and I came home, and I installed it, and I was like playing it at like 3 a.m., and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm on the cutting edge of this shit.
Oh, man. And okay, that's another thing I'll bring up about that game really quick, is they were re-releasing the original. They were released WoW Classic, which is the original World of Warcraft, and now they're doing the Burning Crusade.
Yeah, I saw. And I had some friends who got pulled into that. He was like, I haven't played World of Warcraft in like 6 years, but they're re-releasing the original one. And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
really want to go through all that again?
And I don't know, it still doesn't have that same feel, I guess.
No, I don't think it would. I didn't play the re-release, but it was like it's not a new thing anymore. It's like you're trying to go back in time and relive through that experience again, but you're not going to be able to.
There's newer, better stuff out now, would you say? That have caught your attention.
That's part of it. Also, because you had that experience for the first time already. So, like, you go back, you try to lose your virginity for the second time. It's not quite the same as it was the first time.
It's probably also a little bit of the way, like, say, if you think, I'm going to go and play Mario again, that's only an hour or two. If you think, I'm going to go and play World of Warcraft again, 200 hours later, like, that's sort of the thing, too. It's not just a one-day effort. It's like...
No, it's like it's like an investment there.
A big investment.
Hey, Uncle Blobby, what are your favorite RPGs?
Well, I'd kind of be on Hoagie's team here. Like World of Warcraft was definitely up there for me. if I can continue my little rant, when I was playing in my peak, when the Burning Crusade came out, I was actually in like a raiding guild, and we got to the final bosses of the Black Temple, which was the final raid environment in that expansion pack. And I had that feeling where I was like, oh man, I'm doing something that nobody else is doing. Like, it's really important that I'm here or whatever. And I had a healer. I was a restoration druid. I had the tree form, and I was casting my heal over times on everybody in the party. This is 25-man raids. It was kind of fun how that many people had to come together to achieve a goal and defeat a boss like that. I'd never played a game in my life that was like that before.
You remember the old classic raids, the 40-man raids? That was insane. Those
were even harder.
Yeah, it's very hard to coordinate 40 people.
Oh, yeah. Even when the mechanics of the fight are like, they're challenging, but they're not super complicated.
Compared to what they have now, no, not at all.
It's like there's a circle of fire on the floor. Don't stand in it.
That's another
half
thing.
Your raid dies.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of put me off to World of Warcraft, because I was real big into raiding too. And you go and look at the raids now, and there's just so much going on. It's almost like a sensory overload in a way. You have to have add-ons nowadays for all this different things, so to even get an invite into a raid.
Yeah, and they changed the whole structure of how the raiding part of the game worked when they introduced the like looking for group system. Because previously you had to have an organized team of 25 or 40 people show up on Tuesday night.
Was doing the raids and stuff like that. Yeah, you had to set times. Everybody.
Yeah, you had to have the right build on your character that you slotted into what they needed or whatever. And then later I don't know how it is now, but later they introduced the looking for group function where you could join across a different realm with any random people who are also looking for a group for that raid.
Half the time they don't know what they're doing, and it just over and over and over, and it's 3 hours later, and you're like, why did I even attempt this?
Yeah. So that's
I gotta say,
made
Leroy Jenkins. Leroy Jenkins.
That originated from WoW.
I think that was like Nick's.
One of my favorite video games.
I have that title in World of Warcraft. I have the Jenkins title. That's an achievement you can get in the game and get the title.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So let me say two more things here, unless we're going over time or something. I don't think we are.
We're good.
That looking for group system. As bad as it might be for pairing you up with random people who don't know how to play the raid or whatever, and you fail for 3 hours, you don't get any loot. Boo-hoo. It also opened up that chunk of the game to people who previously couldn't experience that content. It was a good
idea. I think it was just executed a little poorly.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But that's one of those things that depends on the player base too. Like if somebody somebody that's like, okay, I've watched all the videos and tutorials, I know how to do this raid, or you're like, I'm just gonna fucking wing it,
Yeah,
and you never know what you're gonna get.
You might get 12 of one and 13 of the other, and then it's kind of like up to random chance how good you do.
Or you get that one guy that's done it on mythic difficulty, and he's like God mode, and he just goes in there and carries like half the group. I've had that happen.
Yeah, sure.
It sounds like I've never done a World of Warcraft raid, but I've done over 1,000 Destiny 2 raids, and that sounds like that. Like, you don't want to fuck with looking for group. And then there's always one, I've seen all the videos, and you don't want that. That's just a heartache waiting to happen. 6 hours, what, no loot, people quit. No.
Well, that brings up the issue, okay, if they've never done the raid, but they've watched the videos, but nobody wants to invite them for a raid because they've never done it. How the fuck do they do it?
Well, in Destiny anyway, I know it's different, but like it's only a 6-man raid team. But I used to run with a group of lads. We used to like do Sherpa runs where we get 4 or 5 of us and then just jump onto the looking for group on Xbox and find people who have never done the raids and take them through for their first time and explain it all to them. Stuff like that.
Yeah. If you're lucky, you could get that in World of Warcraft too.
Yeah, and nowadays a lot of people are assholes.
Yeah, they almost hate you if you haven't been there before, right? And then they have this superiority complex because they
played and you have to like link an IO Raider score and shit, and you're like, I just want to play the fucking game.
Yeah.
Raid report them. Yeah.
Okay, so if I had to choose one of my favorite, I had Assassin's Creed Black Flag here, but now that we've gone over the topics, that's more of incorporating RPG elements into a game. So I'm changing that answer to now Oblivion, one of the Elder Scroll games. I played a lot of that growing up, and the fact of making your own character. I was a lizard man who turned vampire.
Oh, don't do that.
Accidentally murdered an entire village where I needed.
Accidentally
Murdered
an
a whole
entire village.
Yeah, it was an accident.
I just accidentally just sliced that person in half and bit that
I can
person.
remember accidentally becoming a vampire, and it just ruined my game, and I started over again. I hated it.
I keep hitting this wrong button, and it just keeps killing everybody. I don't know what's happening. Yeah,
Exactly. Why is this button killing? I killed the person that I needed to do a quest for, and it basically halted my whole game. Oh. No,
And they never respawned.
Never respawned or anything, so I had to basically restart the game.
Oh, well.
I was younger then, so I was just like, next game.
Now you know. I mean,
I know
guess
not to.
That falls in the line of you reap what you sow.
Well, I was a vampire and lizard. No one's stopping me.
Game mechanic stopped your ass.
Yeah, it did. So that would be my most memorable and fun RPG game that I first one I sunk a lot of hours into.
Okay, which one was that? Sorry, I had to take a piss, so I stepped away.
Oh, Oblivion.
Okay, Oblivion.
Yeah, an Elder Scrolls game. That's the one in between Skyrim and
Morrowind.
Morrowind, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I played Morrowind and I played Skyrim, but I never played that middle one.
I was just explaining.
Oblivion was actually a big game because it was one of the first really graphically intense games to come out on the 360.
Huge.
I can remember it being a milestone.
Sure, I believe it.
Yeah, that's another RPG game we haven't even brought up is the Elder Scrolls Online, which I've played a bit of. And it's got that character development and the whole vampire and werewolf side and everything. It's got everything of an RPG, and you level up and stuff. And I played a bit of it, and it's got some in-game and stuff.
We should do an episode on that. Our favorite open world RPG. We can get more in depth on World of Warcraft for multiplayer.
We don't want to go down that black hole. So that's deep, continuous, just black hole.
Mine would probably be Fallout.
Fallout series?
New Vegas. Specifically, New Vegas was the one that I spent the most time on.
New Vegas was good. Yeah, I did.
And then Diablo 3. I didn't play Diablo 1 or 2, and I'll probably play 4. But I sunk my teeth into Diablo 3.
As have I.
Point where I can do anything in that game. There's nothing that I can't do in that game. I could level one of you up on a new character from level 1 to max level in 5 minutes.
So you're good at the game.
Yeah, you do the level 80. What are they called?
You keep playing and you progress that far through the game, or do you get to the point to what do I do now? So yeah, I've done that. I had a buddy that I leveled 6 of his character. Well, not 6, maybe 5 of his characters from 1 to 70. I think is the cap, and it only took us about an hour to do all of it.
I think that's why games like that kind of implement that season structure. So every 3, if you play the new content in the season, each, it's 3-month period, and then if you want to play the next season, you start from level 1 again. I think that's why they kind of implement that thing.
Yeah, I think so.
It slowed it down a bit, but I agree. That was a good idea, and that slowed it down a bit. But when you start over and you already know what to do and the whole path to take and everything, it doesn't take long. I played 3 of the 4 of the seasons, and because it's the OPest builds for the characters. I mean, you get the same gear, you're just starting over basically. So you just do it again. The only difference is you can't, dupe items to your buddies.
Yeah, and so then you get to the end of the game, and you run the Guardian Rifts or the Greater Rifts over and over and over again. You get to like Greater Rift 80, and then like you still have you still have an objective to get to like the next one.
Right. 150 is the cap on that, and I've probably ran a good 200 of those.
Yeah.
Easily.
Okay, so you can't go any higher than that.
150 is the cap on a Greater Rift. Even empowered Greater Rift, 150 is the cap.
Back when I played, I only ever got to like 80 or 90, and I think that was like as high as people got then.
Nowadays, it's a race to see who can get to 150 the quickest in under an hour. When the new season starts, you'll see them. I mean, it's crazy, though. There's people out there that still play that game that have just amazed me with how fast they can progress through a season.
I believe it. I don't doubt it.
Okay.
But so just hang on the Diablo 3 subject here. You said you didn't really play Diablo 1 or Diablo 2. Well, my original mention for the RPG game, my favorite, was going to be Diablo 2. Because when I was a teenager, I was like 13 to 15 or whatever. We've first computer that we could play video games on. We finally had internet that worked, and all my friends had computers and internet that worked. We all played Diablo 2, and I would just go home after school every day and play Diablo 2 over and over and over and over and over again. And it was a lot like Diablo 3. You'd get to the max level, and then you'd do these runs just continuously. Like there's this cow level in Diablo 2.
It's in Diablo 3, too. Or it doesn't exist. There is no cow level. I'm sorry.
Well, there is a cow level in Diablo 2. And you would just join a group of 8 people and run through the cow level and kill all these crazy cows with giant axes. And the king cow would drop a unique item every time or whatever. And then, when you got a good build, like in a lightning sorceress or whatever, she could just teleport around the whole cow level and just cast chain lightning through the crowds of cows and kill them all instantly. It would take like 2 minutes to run the whole level, and then you'd leave the game, start a new game, 8 people would join, you do all the same thing again. I played
That's
so
like my
much of that.
barbarian build. You could just run in there and hold I have it on Xbox, right trigger, and he does his whirlwind, which sends tornadoes out from his whirlwind. It just wipes the map. I mean, it kills everything it touches.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get to that point, and you're just like, all right, well, I'm kind of getting bored now. Next game.
There's even an homage to the cow level in Minecraft Dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
But if you go on Diablo 3, you'll even see a little message on the loading screen that the cow level does not exist in Diablo 3.
Yeah, well, it did in Diablo 2, and there's this quest in the first act of the game where you'd help this guy named Wirt in Tristram, who was a character left over from Diablo 1, and you'd collect his fake wooden leg as like a quest reward, and you could use it as a club or whatever, but it was one of the shittier weapons in the game. And little did you know that later on, if you kept that leg, you could put it in your Herodric cube with some chip gems and transform it into the portal to the cow level.
The old cow staff.
Yeah, it's just super cool. Like that's definitely my best memory of an RPG is playing that game.
Diablos are great games for sure. Okay, let's get into our next segment. It's time for hardest theoretical questions of the week. So, this is where I like to ask everyone here and even reach out to our Twitter and Facebook followers to answer my question. And we will read your answers on the podcast if you guys reach out to us. This week, I asked if you're in a zombie apocalypse, you had 3 people that you could choose to be with you, what skills would they be? Or what skills would they have? So it's a little bit more of a difficult one. Superheroes are not allowed. I know a lot of people were asking me that. That's too easy. That's too easy. So it's like the person. So let's say everybody wants John Wick on their team. You don't get John Wick, you get Keanu Reeves as. Well, he's Keanu Reeves. I've seen a few videos where he still knows how to shoot and be a badass, but you get Keanu Reeves, you don't get John Wick.
Sure. And it's more about the skills these people have than who they are.
To help you
right?
survive. To help you survive through the.
All right, who's going first?
Stinky. Let's start off in order here. Who's Stinky? What is your three people skills?
I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to be any part of the zombie apocalypse. Fuck that. I've seen enough TV shows and movies to know that you can't beat it. It's just whether you last two episodes or 6 seasons is the only difference between when your character dies. So I don't want to be in there for any longer than I have to be. So I'm just going to go in for a short time and have a good time. So I'm just going to take in Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, and Russell Peters, and we're just going to laugh and joke until the zombies eventually take us over, and then we're done. And then kind of a second answer to that, which is more of a cop-out answer, is I'll just take in you blokes, and then we'll just have fun, eh? Like, well, what do you think, you know?
Just record another podcast and
yeah, exactly. You know, no,
you all sit around a campfire and use a pine cone.
I don't want to be in there for like 8 years later, big dirty grizzled beard. You're all upset because all your friends have been fucking murdered and whatever. No,
you
like
have
I just
no
go
reason
there.
to live. Yeah,
I haven't seen any zombie apocalypse movie where they win. It's just basically just bite the bullet, go in there, have a couple of days of good time with your buddies, and then that's it. I don't want to be in there any longer than I have
that's a
to.
really good answer, I think.
I can name one movie where they win in a zombie apocalypse.
What movie is that?
World War Z.
I haven't seen that myself.
So
what happens
the
when they
zombie
win?
apocalypse takes over, and it's zombies, but it's Mother Nature's turning them into zombies, and then they find a way to combat it. So Mother Nature wouldn't take anybody with like a fatal illness or like a disabled person. Mother Nature wouldn't mess with them. They'd leave them alone. The zombies wouldn't even go near them. It just whatever, not even there, invisible. So their answer to fighting back and taking over the world was to find some diseases or illnesses that had a high mortality rate but easily curable, and inject that into people to fight people fighting back, and then they'd go and kill off the bad zombies and then get cured and I'll be good. How did I know you played the video game?
Yeah, I definitely played the video game. It was good.
There's a movie to that video
I watched
game.
the movie. Oh, yeah, I watched the movie.
It was a good movie. It was all right. It was
Decent.
different.
Yeah, I think they're making a second one.
I hope so.
Could be wrong. I could be wrong, but
But they technically won, did they not? I mean, they found a way to combat it. I'm sure when they come out with part 2, they'll come out with like a variant and something else that happened.
Yeah.
At the time of that movie, they actually won.
Okay, Hoagie. Well, why don't we keep the ball rolling here? And what is your
See, I don't have particular people like names.
Skills. Then skill sets.
I'd want some type of like engineer mechanic type person, somebody that's really good at just building random things. Like, okay, this redneck over here just built me a cannon out of car parts.
A cardboard tube and it's like a gun.
Yeah, you know. And then
And a gun.
Yeah. I'd want somebody along like that.
Yep.
I'd have to have probably some type of farmer / hunter. Somebody that could, do agriculture and stuff like that for food. And then probably some type of nurse or doctor for health reasons. Those are my 3 answers. Those are the 3 key for survival, I guess you could say.
Okay. Okay, and that's okay. Well, then let's bring in one more thing. What would your skill be?
My skill?
You bring. You gotta use that too. let's go back to Stinky first. What would your skill that you'd bring to the comedians as you guys were being mauled by zombies?
I'm just the Australian of the group. I don't know.
The token Australian, yeah.
Bring some
Yeah,
laughter.
Playing some didgeridoo as you guys are going down.
I'll wrestle the crocodiles. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, Hoagie, okay, let's go back to you. What would your skill set you'd bring?
Being the asshole of the group.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm the motherfucker.
So the first one to get
like,
murdered by the group is what you're saying.
I'm the one that's like, all right, we got our little group. We're surviving. Some random people. Hey, can we come? No, get out of here. Go on. Get.
Fucking Negan from Walking Dead.
I'm Negan. Yeah, Negan. We don't want you around here. Just leave us alone. We're doing okay.
Okay, Uncle Blobby. Your 3 skilled people that were with you, and I guess now your skill that you'd bring to the table.
Yeah, okay. I know we talked about this other day, so I'm probably going to steal some of your answers. I apologize in advance. But
okay.
You got 2 to 3 minutes here to come up with new ones.
Okay.
And actually, I had an easier time coming up with people that I didn't want in my group than people that I did, which is saying something, I guess. I'm not sure what that means, but I don't need an electro music DJ in the zombie apocalypse.
Or hype man.
Yeah, hype man, marketing expert, probably not much use. But we talked about a doctor, or Hoagie mentioned a nurse, and yeah, somebody in that, health department, probably key. But I think
sex worker.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I think the best is probably an EMT, like an ambulance technician, because I don't know how much good a doctor is without a hospital or like a pharmacy that he can prescribe drugs out of. Like, he probably can tell what's wrong with you, but he's not too experienced in like solving the problem right now. Whereas
because basically, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say just the point of the EMT. Basically, if you got heavy internal bleeding and anything you need a doctor for, you're done anyways.
Yeah. EMTs, they can maybe put your leg back where it's supposed to be, or give you a bandage and a sucker, something like that. They do all right. My second important person would be somebody mentioned like a expert hunter, I think.
Yeah.
I think that would be key. I know a guy who brings up to Saskatchewan people from the United States, and they go on hunting trips every fall, and he's like an expert knowing where to find deer
animals,
or geese or whatever. Yeah, he's a hunting guide. That's his job. I think that having somebody like that who could find food sources over the long term would probably be beneficial. And he probably also knows how to kill them and butcher them and then eat them without dying as a result. So that would be a benefit for me, because I haven't got a fucking clue. And in the same category, like a botanist or whatever, who might know which plants are edible, which mushrooms are poisonous, which weed leaves you can rub on your to make them better. That would be super useful, I think.
Okay, and then what would you bring to the group?
What would I bring? Well, you know what? In real life, I studied philosophy. I've got a bachelor's degree in philosophy. I'm going to be the group philosopher. If you guys need reasons for doing something, you just ask me. I'll tell you why you want to do that. If you guys need a mediator to facilitate your disagreement or your discussion, you can ask me. I'll sit in the middle. I'll tell you why you're both right and you're both wrong, and you should just kiss and make better. I will exist to sort of help the group exist as a group, without somebody trying to be the master of the group and everybody else is my slaves. And
that's actually a pretty important thing to have, because what good's a group if you're all fighting against each other? Right?
Yeah, that's exactly my thought. Like, you can create a lot of drama just amongst your group, and you can probably end up dying because you disagree about whatever. So you need somebody who can fit in the middle of that and help. Yeah. So that's where I would fit. And what about you?
Okay, so choosing three different people. The first skill, obviously, EMT or a first responder, some type that can, do now patches, right? Because you break your leg, you need it fixed pretty quick to keep on going, right? And I don't know, maybe they would know if you ever run into pharmacy or something like that. They would kind of like, okay, well, look for this kind of drug for the pain, or this could help.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right?
Fill a backpack with those particular drugs and carry them with us.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah, basically that, because you're a goner anyways due to no hospitals, no MRIs, no going inside of you with a little microscope and
who needs a colonoscopy? Because I'm the
Exactly.
fucking proctologist, and in
Exactly.
Oh, it's
the
colonic
apocalypse.
Tuesday. Let's go.
Next, I would choose someone that knows how to make biofuel.
Ooh.
So biofuel would be a good source, or biodiesel, I should say, more particular, because breaking down vegetables, fruits, and decaying that matter, whatever it takes to make this diesel. You can run generators, you can run vehicles off this fuel, right? So you can make tons of it.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just had a thought. What if you
Okay.
could make fuel out of the dead zombie corpse?
In theory, it's creating energy just from it decomposing, right?
Yeah, so there you
Gotta
go.
be some.
You got infinite fuel source there. If you zombies keep coming, but you just turn them into
Grind them up.
fuel,
You got
that's how you power
trucks
your
and
new
generators.
civilization right there.
Absolutely. And then obviously last, you need some kind of mechanic, MacGyver type guy to keep the lights on, the generators running. If you need to get the generator switched over so it can run biofuel, or vehicles that can run biofuel. I'm pretty sure just straight diesels can run biodiesel straight out of without too much maintenance.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Is it's just a replacement.
And then
You pop it in.
way you go, right? And then what I would bring to the group, growing plants, food, and hunting. I do enjoy hunting.
You're the worker of the group. That's what you're bringing to the table. You can be the sex worker.
Show enough leg, I'll up by everybody's tent, kind of like a lot lizard. Yeah. How you guys doing tonight? Yeah, I made some more biodiesel today. Yeah. Okay, well, let's go to our comments section, Twitter and Facebook, and let's bring up some of the comments that were left there.
I got one on Facebook.
Okay.
Christopher says, I'd have one who's skinny, built, fast, and quite also smart with directions, getting in and out of situations and buildings, etc. So we kind of know, like a person who's, decently athletic and very good with, direction, blah. He said his second person would be the big built person, strong, brave, to go hunting or looting, and good with leadership. And the third person would be the tracker for tracking people or pass by zombies to alert the group as to a no-go, or who's good with communication with strangers and stuff like that, and who's also good with firearms and knows agriculture. Mm-hmm. He said he's been waiting for a question like this for a long time.
Well, I'm glad we could bring it to him. Another comment here from Bobby. He's okay, so he picked, he'd bring Mike Holmes from Homes on Homes. I'm guessing to build shelters, right?
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay, cook food.
Just
gourmet-
abuse people.
Yeah. I'll at them, make them sure that they know they're cooking wrong. And then Chris Kyle from American Sniper. He said, good food, good living, and good protection. And
I think I'd want all of those, but I
those
don't
would
think
be good. Yeah.
I don't think Gordon Ramsay is going to do much good in a fucking post.
I'm sure he knows what to eat and not to eat.
All you can find is cans of corn and fucking some zombie meat. I don't know. Like, what's he going to do? Be mad because it's undercooked?
Yeah, maybe. It's
Abuse
raw.
people.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's
You
going to
are a
help
shit
my
sandwich.
group. Yeah.
Okay. And then Jessica says, a good hunter-gatherer for food, survivalist for someone who can build things solely out of nature, and then would also bring Bobby from the previous comment. So that is all the comments that we got this week. As always, you guys can reach out to us on our Facebook, Twitter, and you guys can also comment on our YouTube video.
We have YouTube videos.
Check out our website. We got a website.
We do have a website. Haunted still owes me $40,000 for it, but yeah.
That's in the mail.
OnlyFans comes out next week.
Yeah. It's Stinky OnlyFans. This is the one running our OnlyFans. OnlyFans Gaming.
I thought Haunted was the lot lizard.
Oh, yeah. Hey, don't take my job. Okay, well, that will do it for another episode of Peanut Gallery Gaming. As always, you can reach out to us on our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and let us know what you guys want to hear on upcoming episodes. See you guys next week.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good week.